Hi, guys, and welcome back to yet another episode of Zee Talks FPL. I think we're doing episode number 4. It's already been 4 episodes. And before we start looking at my game week 1 team, we do a quick review and just look at the fixtures upcoming for game week 2. I would just like to say a big thank you to all my subscribers on this channel. We are now a family of 100 plus, so that's great news. And it's great in the sense that it's not even been, I think less than 10 days since I started off. So yeah, a big thank you. Keep watching, keep sharing, of course, share the love. And if you're watching this video and you have not subscribed already, please do. I'm also running a contest on my Twitter handle, my X handle, Syed Sish. So, one lucky winner at the end of the season will walk away with a big prize. So, head over to my Twitter account, have a look at the contest. Do join in. Do join in. It's fun, and yeah, hopefully one of you will be that lucky winner at the end of the season, for sure. Okay, we'll get started. You know what the format is, right? I really, a lot of times don't have the time, and I also feel that it's not worth investing that kind of time and fancy graphics and stuff. So I try to keep it simple here, so it will stay the same. We'll very quickly just look at my game week 1 team, and then we'll do a game week 2 preview. Again, like I said, we're not really looking at fancy tables here, so we'll be at the official Premier League, the Fantasy Premier League website, of course, to look at the scores. And we'll also just go through each and every game. We'll use SofaScore. I find it quite convenient. I've been using that app for years. Again, it's a great app. So if you have not used it already, do check it out. It's not an ad. I really like using it, and I feel it very convenient to just go through and have a look at the team data, the play data. It's quite useful. uh, okay, so before we get into the game week 2 preview, just where we'll try to understand what the fixtures would be like, how the dynamics are, which players should be in our team, which players should not be in our team. A very quick look at my game week 1 team. So if you followed my content, if you follow me on my X or Twitter social media handle, you would know that I did end up using my bench boost in game week 1, and I played a proper bench boost, right? Because in general in the community, I have noticed that there are a lot of bench boost chips being played, and I don't really look at them as bench boost, because on the bench they have players like I saw a draft with Tijani Reinders on the bench, and some of them playing Spurs defenders, two Spurs defenders on the bench. I don't think that's quite a valid bench boost team, because if you have a Burnley defender, for example, and if it was a normal game week, you wouldn't really start them in your 11. So for me, the bench boost will always be your 4 weakest players, really. So yeah, I followed that logic, and I ended up with a decent score of 86 points in game week 1. Uh, Not that exciting, honestly, but listen, it's a single game week, and from my bench of, we're really looking at fringe players here, right? Rodon, Granit Xhaka, Dubravka, Steve. I think it's a total of 13 points. I think that's not too bad in a single game week. Even in double game weeks, we normally consider a score of 20, 25, 30 points to be a good bench boost outcome. So I think 13 points is a nice return. Not too great, not too bad either. Rodon was the star. He came in clutch with those 7 points in the Everton Leeds game. So that was quite nice. Just 4 million as well. The player that really caught my eye though was Goodmanson, again at a very similar price. He actually ended up with more points. I think he finished on 9 points, if I'm not wrong. So, but yeah, overall, just from my team's perspective, I think that's a good start. Haaland captain, I think, was the very much, I would say, the deciding factor between having an okay game week and a good game week, like you see in my case. And again, if you followed my content, you've watched my previous episodes. I was very much bullish on Haaland, and for all the right reasons. And it turned out to be true. I think Man City looked excellent. Haaland being Haaland, and now that he is surrounded, I would say, by better players, Reinders for a large part of the game. And later in the game, I know we didn't see Ryan Cherky and Erling Haaland together, but I think those two in particular, in the coming weeks, I think they'll really have excellent chemistry. So that is something to look forward to. But yes, I'm very glad that majority content creators, they were very keen on Salah, and they have pretty much ignored Haaland. And that has worked well for me. 26 points makes a big difference. Reinders did a good job. Very happy with Ikitiki in my team as well. 8.5 million, and very happy because I was bigging him up. I was talking him up as probably one of the main guys, one of the biggest point scorers in FPL this season, and I think he looked really sharp. Even the people who don't have him in their team, I think even they would agree that Ikitiki was really solid, really getting into good areas, even apart from the goal that he scored. Right, was hooked off a little early, but I think it's fine because see, this striker is playing for Liverpool, and when you're playing for a team that will definitely end up as maybe the top two, top three scorers in the league overall, and you have 70, 75, 80 minutes every week, I think you take that. You close your eyes and take that, especially at that price. So I think he's a very happy hold for me. He's already gone up in price, if I am not wrong. We will just look at it. Yeah, I think he's 8.6 now. So that I mean, not that it matters a lot, but it's always a good thing if you have a player who is in demand and people are bringing him in. Some decisions that I was not happy with. I am not very much happy with Watkins. I think I went against my own instinct, where I thought Villa were looking a little flat, and the fact that I spoke about it on Twitter as well with one of the users, right? That I just felt that people were really underestimating, Newcastle United just because of the Alexander Isak factor, and that's not quite the right way to look at it, right? Newcastle finished last season as one of the top teams for a reason. They do have good players in their team. I think their defense is solid. Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, I think they all looked all right. My bigger problem with Aston Villa, and I'll just take you through this lineup, is that, see, in their preseason games, right, just facing a bit of a problem with the app. I'll just go back and try to look at I'll just close and open the app. So sorry. My bigger problem with the Aston Villa lineup, and particularly Watkins, right? It's not that Watkins is a bad player. I've always rated him very highly. The problem is in the preseason. Sorry, I'm just repeating myself. One more time. I didn't finish my sentence. So in the preseason, we saw that it was actually Marlon who was starting a lot of the games, and I think that was a very crucial factor, given the way Villa play, the way Unai Emery and his teams normally set up, and he didn't really feature in this game. Now, if you look at the Aston Villa lineup on the screen here, yes, Ollie Watkins is obviously a very good striker. Morgan Rogers is a great player as well, but Morgan Rogers was being utilized out wide, so that was first of all my biggest problem. I think overall they didn't really look very sharp. My bigger problem are these two players. One is this guy, Yuri Tillemans. He was used in the number 10 role. I think he's a decent number 8, but as a number 10, I'm very sorry to say, but I think he's rubbish. He's outright rubbish. Not sure why he is highly owned, particularly in the analytics circle in the FPL community. I don't really want to get into that whole argument, right, of analytics versus, whatever. But I think, Yuri Tillemans, if you have him in your team, just delete your team, I would say, right? He's not a good option at all to me. Uh, if you're playing as a number 10, this guy did not even attempt any decent pass, and whatever attempts he made were just bad. It's championship quality. You cannot be, if Yuri Tillemans is going to play number 10 for Aston Villa this season, I think they should pack up their bags, forget about any hopes for Champions League or a Europa League spot or a Conference League spot. I think they'll really have a hard time. I think Morgan Rogers needs to play that role if they are to do well, and if Watkins is to do well. And you cannot say that, oh, it was just the first game, they've not. No, Aston Villa have actually played a lot of preseason games, and if you notice that one of the players, I think it was Bundia who really played well, and it was Donny Mullen who played well, but he was sent to the bench again. I mean, Emery again with his pragmatism, right? He decided to he really likes Johnny McGinn, and again, very very average player. Maybe I think he's all right if he's playing a deeper role where he's running, in the center of the park, trying to win balls and lay it off to better teammates. But I mean, you're not really going to, win a lot of games, score a lot of goals if out of these four attacking positions that we see on the screen, if out of those four positions, two of them are Yuri Tillemans and John McGinn, I don't think it looks very good for Aston Villa. So and the fact that Newcastle are very much a decent side. I think Dan Burn had an excellent game. Fabian Schär was really good as well. One thing I noticed was that Fabian Schär has struggled a little bit against Ollie Watkins in the past. So this time they were using Dan Burn to sort of go toe to toe, and he was almost bullying Ollie Watkins. So there was not really much of a contest between Watkins and Fabian Schär, because Dan Burn did not really allow that to happen. So something to keep an eye on, just from a Newcastle perspective, right? I think both these centre backs are. I think Dan Burn is 5 million in FPL, and Fabian Schär, I may be wrong, I think he's 5.5. Something to keep an eye on, but Ollie Watkins did struggle against Dan Burn, so that is something that I noticed. Maybe other teams can try to adapt and use the same tactic against Ollie Watkins in the coming games. We don't know. Villa are playing Brentford next, so I think Collins could take up that role against Ollie Watkins, right, where he's really just trying to go toe to toe with him and just bully him. And anyway, Tielemans and McGinn, I don't really rate them as top quality attackers, wingers, number 10s, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, not very happy with my Ollie Watkins decision, and there is some chatter in the community that he could actually be a captaincy favourite in game week 2, just because Aston Villa are playing Brentford. Again, I don't quite agree with it. I think Villa have looked flat. Maybe they will look good if there is a change in personnel up front. Maybe if Donny Mullen is starting a few games here and there. But as we know that managers can be a little stubborn at times, and I'm not talking about FPL managers, I'm talking about Unai Emery. So does he really accept his mistake and give Donny Mullen a start in game week 2? I mean, that's a question that we don't know the answer to yet. Brentford, yeah, they were quite bad against Nottingham Forest, but I expect them to be a little better. It's a home game, and a couple of their players, we don't know Damsgaard if he's back. I think they look better, slightly better as a unit. So I'm not quite sure. Regardless of the opponent, I think you need to take into account the fact that Villa are not quite looking up to it. So I personally rule out Ollie Watkins as a potential captaincy option, at least for me. At least for me. Uh, the rest of it, I think I'm happy majorly with Erling Haaland. I'm happy with Ekitike. I think Reinders is a good option. Gakpo, yeah, I think he scored a goal. But I'll just speak a little bit about Liverpool as a unit, right? I have some thoughts about them. Sorry, I just keep switching because I don't really like to follow structure. I think once you pick, you're talking about a certain player. It's better if we might as well just talk about the team as a whole, right? So I'm just going a little random. I'll try to add the timestamps in the comments right away. So if you just want to, go through one particular, topic or something, you can just jump onto it. So yeah, let's cover Liverpool here. I spoke about how I feel Mo Salah is playing that wideish role in that Palace game, and that was true for the for large parts of this Bournemouth game as well. But one thing I noticed was that yes, there are certain instructions from Arne Slot, the Liverpool manager, and we don't know how that will affect Liverpool in the longer run. For me, there are still question marks about their defense. And I think what's adding to the problem is this guy's desperation to get on the score sheet, which I believe is not very good for Liverpool, from a real life football perspective. But I think it's good from an FPL perspective. I believe, from whatever content I've seen of Mo Salah, I believe he follows FPL, that's for sure. And he's one of those guys who's really, very much, I think he constantly thinks of his goals and his assists, and the personal milestones, really matter a lot to him. He's not like a De Bruyne. Like De Bruyne, again, you could say that Salah and De Bruyne, even though the positions are different, they are, really at the same level. But in terms of their nature, if you looked at De Bruyne as a player, for example, he didn't really care about the numbers so much. And you look at Salah on the other hand, right? I think he's very much got that Ronaldo mentality where he really wants to score the goal. And I think that is how his goal in the very last minutes against Bournemouth came, right? He was very desperate. Things are not quite happening for him, to be very honest. I was reading some tweets about how he looks so dangerous. I think he was just trying too hard in the first 10 minutes or so, but after that he was just forcing it. And I think those things will, to be honest, come off in the future games, because he has that quality. But I think it impacts Liverpool as a unit, so that's a problem for Arne Slot to, I think, address, how he can just strike that balance. And objectively speaking, Salah is undoubtedly Liverpool's best player. So, even from Salah's perspective, he will tell the manager that, listen, you're wasting me outright in those wide channels. I'm not really able to influence games, and to score goals and get involved, I have to really, really push it. And I don't know how convenient that is from an overall team's perspective as well. So I think those kind of conversations will be happening at Liverpool. Also, not to forget that the next Liverpool game is an away game at Newcastle. It's an opponent, Newcastle as a team, right? Mo Salah has a good record against them, so that's another factor to consider if you still have Mo Salah in your team, which I believe pretty much everyone in the FPL circle has. I think he's a firm hold, regardless of the Haaland factor. I still believe Haaland is the number one player in the game this season. looking sharp, and better quality around him. But I think Salah will. He's just that kind of a player, right? He's very selfish, very much numbers minded, right? And I believe, I'm sure he has a burner on Twitter, or in the FPL circle somewhere, where he's constantly reading about people talking about him, talking about his numbers, and I think that really fires him up. If you watch some of his interviews with the Premier League folks as well, he's very keen on how he wants everyone to have him in his team. So I think that will be a factor in the coming weeks. So I didn't think he had a great game overall. Speaking of the away game factor, right? I just have a feeling that this guy, Florian Wirtz and Cody Gakpo, I think one of them may find themselves on the bench against Newcastle, because I think just speaking in terms of structure, right, Liverpool almost ended up drawing the game. It was only because Chiesa, sort of came off the bench, and I believe that was a very lucky goal that he scored. I think there were a lot of fundamental issues with Liverpool structure even before Bournemouth. Semenyo scored those two goals. I think there were a lot of structural issues in the team, and I think a lot of that is happening because this man, I spoke about him in my, I think, game week 1, the very first episode, that when Szoboszlai used to play the number 10 role, it used to be a big net positive for Liverpool, because even though he's not the kind of number 10 who would create a lot of chances, but he used to work very hard off the ball, and that really elevated Mo Salah and even others to a great level, I would say. Keeping in mind that it's an away game, Liverpool did have a lot of structure issues in a home game itself. I think this is something that will constantly be in Arne Slot's mind, where he'll feel that maybe he needs that extra workhorse in the midfield, in the center of park, and I think one of Florian Wirtz or Cody Gakpo could end up on the bench. I think if Florian Wirtz plays, he could play slightly off the left. So it's let's see. I mean, these are just my early thoughts, but regardless of that, I feel that Mo Salah will not stop scoring or assisting, despite the different role that we've seen him play in the Palace game and in the first game against Bournemouth as well, because he just looks so desperate. He's either going to ruin the team balance, and he will not care about it. And I saw that on a lot of occasions where he had better options, to just be that assister to the one who's getting the assist. He did not use that option. He was not really making those passes to Florian Wirtz. He really wanted to either assist or score a goal, and that mentality could be a crucial factor. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Liverpool, but I think it will definitely help Salah be in those goals and assists. So that's something to look out for. Speaking of other results, I think Spurs looked okay, not too bad, not too good. I think they were lucky to keep a clean sheet, so happy with that 6-pointer for Van de Ven in my team. I was very unfortunate with these two of my Brighton players. So De Cooper and Verbruggen, last minute clean sheet wipeout. That's very, very painful, and I think that cost me like about 8 to 10 points at least. I didn't really see if either of them were on any bonus points, to be honest. But that was sad. But it is what it is. I think overall the team has done well. Milenkovic, it's a non-story. Nottingham Forest didn't keep a clean sheet, and no defensive contribution points for him either. So yeah, that's fair. I think Burnley looked quite bad defensively, to be honest. But again, first game, right? It's a newly promoted side. Also, I think Everton were rubbish. I think Leeds United were terrific. In their first game back in the Premier League, I think they were excellent. And Goodmanson, like I said, right, in particular, was my pick, my preferred choice. The Chelsea game was interesting. I think I was really hoping that Cole Palmer would have that great start to the season, right? But looking at it, I think not a lot has changed. I don't know if it's really a tactical thing with their manager, Enzo Maresca. But I don't really see Cole Palmer attacking the penalty box so much. I think the way the Chelsea manager is using Cole Palmer in, for example, the Club World Cup games or in Europe is a little different compared to. I think he's playing a little bit of a withdrawn role in the Premier League, and that is affecting his output. I was reading somewhere that I mean, Cole Palmer has just one non-penalty goal, or he hasn't scored a non-penalty goal at all in the last 7 to 8 months. So that's a big case of worry. Not, in hindsight, yeah, it does seem like, oh, we should have really considered this, but it is what it is, right? I think Palace was solid as well. Credit to them. I think defensively they were really good. Particularly this guy Lecroix. I have spoken about him on my Twitter handle. 5 million. I think he is one of those defensive contribution monsters, and he ended up with 16 defensive contributions. So that's an additional 2 points for him. So I think he did really well. Mitchell also, he managed to get those extra 2 points, and he ended up with one bonus point as well. So yeah, you walked away with a clean sheet if you had a Kukurea or Sanchez or any of the Chelsea defenders. Some FPL managers had Tosin in their team, and unfortunately he was ruled out because of the injury. So hard luck on that. And last but not the least, yeah, I'm just speaking on the Nottingham Forest game, right? I watched the highlights. I missed the game, so I just went back, looked at the data, watched the highlights. Elliot Anderson, wow, what a player! And I feel having hyped him up in the preseason in all my videos, and because of that one rumor of Douglas Luiz coming to Nottingham Forest, I just wanted to proceed with a little bit of caution, so I ended up taking him out for Rangers, who, to be honest, did well. But if you look at Rangers and the kind of value that he's offering, and you also look at Anderson, if you ignore their price points, I think they're such good value. I believe we can have both of them in their team. And you look at Anderson's numbers, they're absolutely fantastic. He got an assist as well. So he got 2 points for playing the game. He walked away with one bonus, got an assist. So that's a 6 pointer. And mind you, he almost hit his threshold for defensive contribution. So ended up on 11. Just one more contribution would have meant he ended up with 2 more points. So that would have been an 8 pointer just for getting an assist. So something to keep an eye on. And I made a cheeky statement in one of my previous episodes that I believe that Anderson could really end up being the most popular or one of the most popular FPL midfielders soon. I think that cheeky statement may turn out to be true given the kind of value that he's offering. Also with Nottingham Forest, right, it's a lesson for all of us as FPL managers that don't rely solely on preseason friendlies, right? Yes, if it's a community shield game where you're really looking at a shape that managers may adapt in the long run, I think that's a different story. But I think purely from a preseason friendly perspective, everyone is talking down Nottingham Forest and Chris Wood in particular. I'm not saying that Chris Wood will be a world beater for the next 12 months and he'll score 30-35 Premier League goals, but I think he'll still do well. He did well in the first game. We were all blinded by by that factor that they've not done well in preseason, and it turned out to be a different story when the ball kicks off. Yes, I also mentioned that their manager Nuno was talking about how they are not in the best desired shape, and all those things, but I think they looked really fit to me. So it could also be a case of managers, football managers in real life, of course, playing those mind games at times, right, where they don't really want to give away their cards, and you just play that underdog gimmick and it works in your favor. So I think that worked really well for Nottingham Forest. So yeah, Elliot Anderson, so sorry for not having you in my team, and yeah, I think he'll be in my team soon. He's terrific value for that price, 5.5 million. And Chris Wood, of course, he's a good option. The only problem with Chris Wood is that the two main strikers that I've got, right? I've got Erling Haaland, and I've got Hugo Ekitike. I'm very happy with them, and obviously Haaland to me is a non-negotiable, and Ekitike, of course, playing for Liverpool, very central. So unless it turns out that Ekitike is suddenly a minute's risk, or he's been given a different role where he's not scoring a lot of goals, then yes, it's an easy downgrade because Ekitike comes at a higher price, so it's easy to switch to Wood in maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. We'll see how Nottingham Forest play in the coming weeks. uh yeah, Leeds Everton. I think Everton were quite bad, really really bad. I think they had a horrible game. Leeds were excellent, goes without saying. Goodmanson, I've already spoken about him, right? 4 million. I think in particularly these home games, I will not be surprised if Goodmanson ends up with maybe some double-digit hauls in a few games. I'm sure there'll be some games where Goodmanson is like picking up a clean sheet, getting the defensive contribution points, and he chips in with an assist or something, and suddenly you're looking at a 12 pointer, and who says no for that? Just 4 million, right? Last but not least, before we talk majorly of, I think there's not much to talk of Spurs game here. Maybe we'll talk about the City game. I have a couple of points about that, but yeah, before we jump to that, just about Manchester United versus Arsenal. I expected it to be a very tight game, and I believe it was a tight game. One thing that stood out to me was that you need Arsenal defenders in our team. I think from a tactical perspective, Mikel Arteta is the same manager. We all thought that once Victor Gyökeres comes in, they may be a little more direct, a little more adventurous in their approach, but they are not. That is the reality. They may be a little more adventurous in one of the coming games, or when their fixtures ease up. They're playing Leeds at home in game week 2, but after that they again have a few tricky fixtures. So I think the trend will continue, but from an FPL perspective, I think it's important to maybe have at least one Arsenal defender. I think that becomes important. So I think we'll have to find a way to bring in one of them. I am just thinking out loud, okay, that if you want to go for an Arsenal defender, I think David Raya is at 5.5 million. So really, are you willing to spend that extra 0.5 million? I don't think that's a very wise option. Do you want to spend 5.5 on Calafiori or Ben White? Calafiori did end up on the score sheet. My problem is that I think they'll share a lot of minutes. So I think there'll be games where Timber will start some game at right back or left back, and they have a few options for those spots as well. I think you really have to be ready to spend that extra amount and spend 6 million on one of Gabriel or Saliba, and Also, yes, clean sheet is a factor. I think they'll once again be one of the top 2-3 teams, as you would expect, to be right up there in terms of clean sheets at the end of the season. But I also expect them to continue their trend of scoring goals from set pieces. So I expect a lot of headed goals, coming in. My pick would be, I think you just go for William Saliba. He also tends to be the the player out of these two, right, in the center back pairing. I think Gabriel is the one who's a lot of times, just doing that role of progressing the ball, and Saliba is the one slightly acting like the leader. It's very similar to Ruben Dias for Man City, right? So I think he has the potential of getting more defensive contribution points, clearances, tackles, blocks, interceptions. So I think he would be my pick, and he is a bit of a danger from set pieces as well. So he could get us a goal or two every now and then. So I think that's a good investment. Uh, Speaking of Saka, I think we'll come to Saka and Gyökeres later, because I want to talk a bit about game week 2 captaincy. We'll just look at the Man City game. I think this, particularly of this game, there's not much to talk. I expected Haaland to score, and he did ended up scoring twice. I expected Cherky to start. He didn't start, but once he came on, he showed his quality. I think Pep Guardiola in his press conference was very complimentary of Ryan Cherky. He said that he's excellent in small spaces, very very creative, and I think after those positive comments, I do expect Ryan Cherky to be a factor in the coming games. Oscar Bob, yes, he did pick up an assist, but I don't really think he is going to be in our FPL teams or in the Man City starting 11 for too long. I think eventually you're looking at Ryan Cherky and in Phil Foden to, they're obviously much better in terms of quality, more established players as well, especially from Man City point of view, right? Foden is an established figure in the team now. I think he's one of the senior players in the team, so he will, once he's back fit and available, it should be very soon. I think he will be available. So Oscar Bob, good player, but he's a no go from a Man City sport perspective. I think you need to have Haaland, you need to have Tijani Wenders, 5.5 bargain price, and maybe one of Foden or Cherky later. Trafford is a nice option. Just keep an eye out. Okay, if Donnarumma doesn't come to Man City, I think at 5 million he's a good option, and because of Trafford, I think he's a much better short stopper than Edison. So that also improves the appeal of Man City defenders as well. So that's another factor to consider. Why I'm saying Trafford is that you're more or less, you don't have to worry about the Pep Rowlet, because with defenders you never know with Pep, right? There'll be a random game where he says that this game is too easy, and you have Ruben Dias in your team, and suddenly he's on the bench. Same with Ait Nouri in the left back spot as well. I think Guardiola can definitely play that left back position. Nathan Aki is also an option. And you never know, in some game he could just put Rico Lewis left back just because he wants someone to invert and he wants someone right footed in that left back position. So it's really a guessing game with Pep Guardiola, right? So I think Trafford solves that problem. But yeah, let's hold on to till this transfer window is off and we know for sure that Trafford will be the starting keeper at Manchester City. Very quickly, I think we've spoken a lot in detail about the major assets, but we'll get into some specific points. Game week 2 coming up very soon, and the first game is West Ham Chelsea. Not very confident. Yes, West Ham, they did end up conceding 3 goals to Sunderland, but I think that tells only half a story. So I'm not expecting West Ham to set the world on fire. Of course, That is not going to happen. But if we just look at the underlying data in that game, I think a lot of that was down to just bad goalkeeping, really. And could be nerves as well, right? Because the new goalkeeper, his first ever game for West Ham United, I think that was a factor. Look at the underlying data; it's not too bad. West Ham just conceded 0.68 xg, and that's decent. I don't expect the trend to continue. Just look at the goalkeeper data. Yeah, here he is. See, in the goals prevented matrix, he's at minus 1.24. That means he didn't really have a good game, but I think that's all right. I think Potter will persist with him. I'm seeing some shouts on my Twitter feed and Instagram feed as well, and on Reddit in general in the FPL community, that West Ham could be a relegation candidate. I really don't think so. I think there's enough quality in that team, and it was just a blip. And not to forget, Sunderland are a decent side as well. They've made some good signings. They've got Granit Xhaka in the middle. I think he has that experience. He's now their captain as well. So I think it rubs off on the rest of the team. So that will be a factor. So back to West Ham Chelsea. I'm seeing some shouts for Cole Palmer captaincy in the community. I don't think he is captainable in this fixture. I think it will be a tight game. That is my feeling. Graham Potter would not want another 2 or 3 goal bashing. I'm not saying that Chelsea will lose. They may well end up winning the game, but I think it will be tight. It will definitely be tight. And my biggest problem is that Enzo Maresca has been using Palmer in that. I don't know why he's holding him back, right? You have to unleash a player of Palmer's quality. You have to unleash him, right? He needs to have a lot of penalty area touches, along with whoever is playing that number 9 role. It could be Pedro, it could be Delap. Also spoke of Joao Pedro and how I felt he is not a very good candidate for game week 1, and it turned out that he didn't really score. But if you have him in your team, I think it makes sense. The logical thing is to hold on to him, see how he does, give him 2-3 games, and see what the situation is like. But Liam Delap will constantly be knocking on the door. He is a very decent striker as well, so I think that will always be a factor. See, this is what I was talking about, right? Most of Palmer's touches are in that deep half space towards the left, I would say, and slightly on the right. You want Palmer to take a lot of your shots, get more expected goals. So just 0.17 in terms of his XG. You look at his shot map, and he just had one shot in the box, one a little bit on the edge of the box. Otherwise, I just look at these as wayward shots. Not very encouraging. And the fact that he's not scored a non-penalty goal for a very long time, so that's a factor. Just a shout to Caicedo. I don't think he will ever get a lot of goals or assists, but he did pick up that extra 2 point for his ball recoveries, and he made a lot of tackles, a lot of interceptions, block shots. So at 5.5 million, he walked away with 5 points. Do I think he is a valid option for FPL? No, because that's his floor. In terms of his ceiling, there is not much potential like an Elliot Anderson or a Tijani Reinders for that instance. A surprising start for this young kid, available for 4 million in FPL, but we don't really know if he's going to be available or not. One Chelsea defender that I really like is actually Reece James. I like him more than Cucurella because he's 0.5 million cheaper, and the fact that Reece James tends to be hooked off early. So I think that is a good thing, because if Chelsea end up conceding a late goal, it does not affect Reece James, and that also improves his bonus potential. So, just a very short thing that I wanted to point out. I think I like James at that price, but yeah, going back to Palmer and the captaincy, right? I don't really see Palmer as a captaincy option against West Ham. City Spurs, I think, should be a good game, and I know that City have had all sort of troubles in the past, against Tottenham, and that's constantly going to be a factor that people will talk about. But just saying that in terms of the quality between the two teams, I think City are the far better team, and I think they should blow away Tottenham comfortably, is what my thinking is. The thing that I wanted to point out for this fixture is, what I noticed from a tactical perspective against Wolverhampton is, and if you look at Tijani Renders, his profile, he's very versatile, and this is something that I've spoken about in the past as well. He can play that box to box role, but he's also very good at dictating the tempo. Now, in the away games, I think it made sense to have Tijani Renders as that box to box option, crashing the box every now and then. He took a bit of time to settle in, and having Nico Gonzalez, playing that slightly deeper role. I have a feeling that because this is a home game and we could see this happening quite frequently at the Etihad, I think Pep Guardiola could use this man, Tijani Renders, in a deeper role when Manchester City are playing at home. Why I think so? Because it's the Etihad. Anyway, Man City like to keep a lot of the ball, and that goes a level up when they're playing at home. They really dominate with the ball. So a lot of times it's everyone except the keeper in the opponent's half, and the opponent is. I mean, even with Spurs, right? Their play style, they will just park the bus. That's what is going to happen. So I have a feeling that we could see maybe Tijani Renders and one of Bernardo Silva or Gundogan. I hope it's Bernardo Silva and not Gundogan, of course. Play together in that at the base of the midfield. Maybe Renders will advance a bit forward every now and then. But I expect these two to play, and if Phil Foden is available or if Ryan Cherky is available, I think one of these guys will play the number 10 role against Spurs, and I expect that trend to continue in the home games going forward as well, especially against teams that will sort of sit back and let Man City have a lot of the ball. So I think this is a game that is really primed for someone like Ryan Cherky. So let's identify these trends in the coming games, and that will help us make decisions for a Man City midfielder maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line. But this is my feeling, right, with this particular game. I think Haaland is a firm hold. He will be the man who will be involved if City were to score, and I think City will score. But don't captain him, because what happens in some of these games when the top sides play each other is that someone like a Haaland could be just marked by 2, 3, 4 people. They constantly hack him down, and that will obviously benefit the players around Haaland. So Man City could end up winning altogether. But I don't think that the ceiling could be as high when he's playing Wolves or any other bottom half team for that instance. So yeah, just a little bit of thought crumbs on that. I just felt that it's worth highlighting. So don't be surprised if Tijani Renders does not end up with another double-digit haul against Man City. I think he could play that slightly deeper role in home games. That's my feeling right now. Spoken about Brentford and Aston Villa, I think you should avoid captaining Ollie Watkins altogether. Not worth it. I think the predicted lineup right now, as per SofaScore, says that Donny Mullen will start. That is interesting, but at the same time, we don't know this for sure. So I would avoid captaining Ollie Watkins altogether. I think this is a good fixture, Bournemouth versus Wolves. If you have Evan Nelson, he's a good option. I think Semenyo is a nice option as well. If you had him versus Liverpool, well done, and I think you should hold on to him. Larson for Wolves, decent option. I'm not sure how well Wolves will do as a unit and what kind of supply Larson will get. I personally have Wolverhampton as one of the relegation candidates this season. I'm not very keen on him, to be honest. Burnley Sunderland again, I don't see much to discuss here from a FPL perspective. Everton Brighton could be interesting. First home game for Everton, so I think they'll keep it tight. At the same time, Brighton are adventurous. They like to attack. Could be a 0-0 kind of a game here. It really depends on which Everton turn up, right? I think if they have a bad game here, there will be a few question marks around David Moyes. So I think Everton are one to monitor in the coming weeks, and they normally tend to start a bit slow. I mean, David Moyes as a manager, right? He starts his team start a bit slow, so it's a wait and watch from that perspective. I think if you have someone like a D Cooper, right, for Brighton, you keep hold of him. Everton, I expect them to play deeper as against Brighton as well. So he could have a lot of joy, just bombing forward. So that will be very interesting. Crystal Palace and Forest. I have spoken about Elliot Anderson. I think he is a terrific option at that price, just 5.5 million. I'm trying to figure out a way to bring him into my team. So yeah, that is that. I think apart from that, with Crystal Palace, they have a few midweek games, if I'm not wrong. So it just makes sense to just hold on to him, to the Crystal Palace players for now. Unless you already have one of their defenders, then I think you just hold on to them, right? This is the one that I wanted to talk about. I think Bruno didn't look that good from an FPL perspective against Arsenal. The two players that really caught my attention, one is this guy here, Bryan Mbeumo, and the other one is Manchester United's left wing back Dorgu. Very, very advanced, passing the eye test as well. Same with Bryan Mbeumo. I think he took quite a few shots and was very, very close to scoring as well. I think it was just one instance where he was about to score and Ahmad sort of interfered. He just came into his path and he couldn't pick it off. Otherwise, I think Mbeumo could have got Manchester United level in that Arsenal game. Benjamin Šeško, I don't really think he's an option. I'm not sure why Mason Mount got a start in the Arsenal game. I just feel that from a tactical point of view, I'm not sure why Ruben Amorim, the Manchester United manager, is so adamant and so keen to have Bruno play in that midfield role at the base. I think a player of Bruno's quality has to be out there as one of the players in the final third. If he really wants to play Mason Mount, he could have just played him in the center with Casemiro, and Bruno could have been the one further forward. But anyway, I mean, we can talk about hypotheticals, but what we need to focus on is what the manager of the team prefers, and he prefers Bruno in this deeper role. So I don't know at 9 million how good of an investment that is, if that is the kind of role that Bruno is going to play. But again, right, Fulham, I think it's a good fixture. I think United looked fine. One very important thing that I've not seen a lot of FPL managers speak about is with Manchester United players. Like, unlike the other top sides, I think United benefit from the fact that they do not have midweek fixtures to care about. I think that's a big factor. So yeah, they may play a few, initial rounds of the Carabao Cup here and there, but you don't really expect your Bruno Fernandes and your Mbumos and your Cunhas to feature. The main players will sit that one out. I think they should be sharp, get enough rest, while the rest of the teams, sort of play week in week out in Europe and these competitions. I think that's going to be a big factor for Manchester United. So yeah, Brian Mbeumo, I think you should have him in your watch list. Uh, it'll be interesting to see who takes penalties for Man United. United fans are telling me it's definitely going to be Bruno, but we don't know that yet because see, Mbeumo he's a very good penalty taker. So is Cunha, right? So let's see who takes the next one. Maybe it could be a scenario where Cunha or Mbeumo, if they win a penalty, they may just grab the ball and take it themselves, right? Let's see. But I think United will improve this season. I think even defensively they were much better this time around. Just that Bruno as an FPL asset is not looking that good. But yeah, on the basis of all the factors that we've seen, I think I am very much interested in Brian Mbeumo and Patrick Dogo. I think these two they're the players to watch out for. And yeah, Newcastle versus Liverpool. It's going to be the last game of game week 2, Monday night football. And says, I mean, the predicted lineups have Gravenberch back in that midfield too, and Szoboszlai sitting out. My feeling still remains the same. I think Szoboszlai will feature as well. Maybe one of Gakpo or Florian Wirtz, they could end up sitting out. Let's see. But I feel that regardless of the things that I spoke about Salah, I think 14.5 million is still a little bit too much. But from what I've seen, right, and given his nature, I think he'll continue to be selfish, not caring that much about the team's output. I think he comes from the logic where again the mentality is very much like Cristiano Ronaldo when it comes to Mo Salah. He's one of those guys that think that, listen, if I score, it benefits the team. If I assist, it benefits the team. So I want to be on the score sheet, right? That's the kind of mindset that he comes from. And he has that reputation where he may not follow the manager's instructions on the pitch, because what is the manager going to do? What is Arne Slot going to do? Is he really going to take off Mo Salah? I don't think he can. I don't think he has the reputation to do that. I think in Liverpool, it's Mo Salah who has that reputation where he can take the call, where he does what he wants, and he's earned it over the years, right? That's the kind of pedigree that he commands, because tomorrow he announces that he's available to join another team. I think a lot of teams will queue up for a signature from Real Madrid, Barcelona. All the big sides will be up there, but that's a different question. I'm just saying from an FPL perspective, I think Mo Salah looks fine. The Frimpong factor is definitely there, but I noticed that just the way Salah was ignoring Florian Wirtz, I think he was doing the same with Frimpong as well. So we don't really know how it's going to turn out, but all I know is that Salah, with his selfish nature, he's not selfless at all. I think he will always try to be on the score sheet, and he'll end up on the score sheet, or get an assist or so every now and then. So I think that trend could continue this season as well. He definitely will not hit his tally of last season, but I think maybe we'll see Mo Salah as the second highest scorer in the league after Erling Haaland. So keeping that in mind, right? Speaking of the captaincy. And we also spoke of Arsenal players, right? I spoke at length about William Saliba. There's also Bukayo Saka, and I'm seeing a lot of people considering him for captaincy in game week 2. Again, not very sure. And if you're not aware, I think yesterday I read somewhere that Victor Gyökeres, his agent, has revealed in one of the interviews that he will be the main penalty taker for Arsenal. So that dents Bukayo Saka's appeal to a large extent as well, I feel. We don't know how true that is. Maybe it's, just the agent. Maybe it's Mikel Arteta who's asked the agent to speak of this so that they can just find out who's, leaking the team news outside. We don't really know that, but this is the word that's come out that Gyökeres will be the main penalty taker. I think it makes both Gyökeres and Saka bad options, particularly Saka. With Gyökeres, see, the doubt is that Arsenal are not really playing to his strengths from what we saw in the first game. He's a completely different profile, and the fact that I don't think Gyökeres, I spoke about this in the first episode as well, not so much in the second and third, but in the first one, I think, where I feel that his minutes are not secure. Havertz will constantly be lurking around, and that's going to be a factor. So I think if you have a Saka or a Gyökeres, yes, I think you should start them. I'm not very sure if they deserve captaincy. My feeling, looking at these game week 2 fixtures, I think this is going to be very tough fixture to determine who's the best captain. It's not very straightforward. The more I look at it, right? I think Palmer is a non-option. We have doubts around Saka as well. Haaland, yes, I think Haaland is you can take that. He's a proven goal scorer, right? If not a very high ceiling, but I think he's a safe captaincy bet, in my honest opinion. You can rely on Haaland to give you at least one return, and hope that he gets some bonus points as well. My honest feeling is that, contrary to what I've said in the first episode of the season's podcast, I think this man is likely going to be my captaincy favorite for game week 2. I know right now the feeling in the community is that, we should get rid of Salah and this and that, but you look at the fixtures, you look at Salah, the kind of player that he is, the kind of mindset that he has, and his record against Newcastle. I think I'll put Salah as the captaincy favorite for me this season. This game week, sorry. I think my 2 captaincy picks are going to be Mo Salah, number 1, and Erling Haaland is the other option. These are the 2. I think this is going to be the theme for a lot of the season as well, right? A lot of Haaland and Salah. And yeah, I think that will be the trend. Do keep an eye out on Bryan Mbeumo, I would say. He is a perfectly fine option, just 8 million in price. And if I'm not wrong, United are actually playing Burnley at home in game week 3. So that, if you want to take a punt, you get something out of the Fulham game. And then you have an excellent fixture in game week 3, where they play Burnley at home. I think game week 3 will be, Mbeumo could be a captaincy favorite as well. Even City have a good fixture, but yeah, focusing purely on game week 2, I think we have pretty much covered everything, right, from the fixtures to captaincy. Just to summarize it, right, I think in terms of the cheap gems, right, the underpriced option, I think you've missed the trick on Elliot Anderson. I think he should be the one, who should be in your team. If you don't have him, bring him in. He's excellent value. On the other hand, if you started with Elliot Anderson and you don't have Tijani Reinders, I think you bring in Reinders, right? I feel that even though I expect him to play slightly deeper in the home game, I think he's still a good value for money option. You're looking at him as a 7.58 million midfielder who's pretty much underpriced in the game. So, you might as well bring him in, and before the price really shoots up. I think you can do a bit of a hokey pokey, and getting both of them is very much doable, in my humble opinion. They offer excellent value. That will also help you save money elsewhere, right? So that becomes a factor. We've spoken about Watkins and how I feel that I've gone very cold on Watkins and Aston Villa, to be honest. Not really impressed. Same with Gyökeres, right? I don't think is a good option, and with the penalty factor, it impacts Bukayo Saka as well. Chelsea again have problems with how the manager is using Cole Palmer. And yeah, Mbeumo is a standout player, one to talk about for me. I think he's the. If you wanted to ask me who is the player of the week in terms of your watch list, I think you need to have Mbeumo in there. And yeah, captaincy favorites for me will be Mo Salah and Erling Haaland. That's it for now. We have spoken in depth about game week 1 and game week 2. It was again lovely chatting FPL with you guys. Uh, if you have any questions, do let me know. You can respond in the comments below. I'll try adding the timestamps as soon as possible so you can just jump to your preferred topics. You can also reach out to me on Twitter or my X handle. If you have any questions, you can just reply to one of my tweets, drop me a DM. I'll be more than happy to help you out. And last but not the least, make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell icon, share the video, do all the good things, right? Spread love, spread happiness. It's a short life, and enjoy playing the game. That's the most important thing, right? Enjoy playing the game, and all the best for game week 2. And hopefully I'll be back on the deadline day, or maybe a day before the deadline day, with my preview video for game week 2. Until then, it's a goodbye.